Dear friends who love for volleyball, amor por el voleibol, I have the pleasure and the honor to talk today with a volleyball personality of the United States of America. He's president of the board of directors of the International Volleyball Hall of Fame and executive director of the Florida region of volleyball. I mean Steve Bishop, who is currently talking with me about his volleyball life. Hello, Steve. How are you?
Well, good morning. I'm doing great, Alfredo. How are you today, sir?
Fantastic. Always right here in Chile with high temperatures. And Steve, and I wanted to start this conversation asking you about your beginning in volleyball. When and why did you get involved in our beautiful sport?
Well, it's a long story, and I'll give you the short version of it. I started basically as a fan of the sport, watching my parents play when I was a young kid. In different recreational and church leagues, and kind of grew up batting the ball around and getting involved, sometimes filling in as I got older when they had vacancies on their co-ed team. And then I went into the Air Force, United States Air Force, and right about 1987, I believe it was, I had an opportunity to join the Air Force varsity team that traveled from our base and competed against other military teams. And that's when the journey started in 1987. I affiliated with USA Volleyball at that time. And I started as an athlete. And then I progressed to a coach. And then I moved to a club director, ran a juniors volleyball club here in Florida for about 6 or 7 years. And then transitioned to an administrator as the executive director and president for the Florida region of USA Volleyball. And this is a position that I've held now for, I think I'm at 21 years. So,
okay. It's a very briefly resume of your volleyball career. I wanted to go a little back because what I know is that volleyball was a word spread mainly via the military of the United States, especially the Air Force, the Navy, who played volleyball around the world, and people of other countries saw the sport, so they liked it and they wanted to play volleyball. And how was it for you in this time when you were in the Air Force to play volleyball, to maybe to fall in love with this game? You are very tall. I remember you standing with Fielder Hauser. He is 2'7", and I know you maybe you are 2'5". I don't know, but you have the perfect height for a volleyball player. How was it for you to be able to play as a military, as a Air Force member around the world, and maybe spread our sport around the world?
Well, those are some of my fondest memories of competing while I was in the Air Force. There were early times in the military before there were some budget restrictions where travel was not an issue, and we would get temporary orders on a Thursday or a Friday. We'd go and get on a military airplane that was heading to another base, and we would stay there and compete in military volleyball events over the weekend. We also played in a collegiate club circuit against very well-known colleges, college men's teams in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Colorado. And so we traveled quite a bit, and I got a chance to play with some very high-level athletes. I had to learn quickly because I didn't have boys high school volleyball when I was a kid, and so there was no avenue for me to learn volleyball at a high level. So I had to learn quickly in the military game, but made lots of great friends, played in many great competitions, and those were really fond memories of my early days in the sport as an athlete.
Fantastic. Military volleyball is as far as I know, not very known in the media. I knew about this when we lived in Germany with my parents, and my father told me, he was also a trainer, about military competition in I don't know, in Russia and Bulgaria and the former east side of the world. So, but I never had read about much about volleyball in the military. I know only the thing about the volleyball spreading around the world via the military teams. But I want to go ahead and ask you about, and when you're playing in the 80s, for example, did you? I'm surely you know about the Los Angeles team of 1984 with Doug Beal and Coach Karen and all these stars. What was your opinion about this? Do you wanted to play with them? Do you have some dreams about it, or you're still in the Air Force and that was your life?
Yeah, I was military. I watched those. I watched those games that competed in Los Angeles, and it really sparked my interest, which is why I got involved with the base military team there in the 80s after the 84 games in Los Angeles, and it was certainly inspiring. I think one of the things that I did, I don't know if you remember the name Steve Timmons from
Yes.
he was one of Karch's teammates.
Mm-hmm.
He wore a big high, what I
Yeah.
called a flat top. And so while I was in the military, I had my hair cut that way for many years while I was playing volleyball. It didn't really help me play like Steve Timmons, but it was an interesting approach. I did get a chance to meet Doug Beal in 1993. I tried out for the USA men's national team in San Diego, California. That was a very, very intense tryout. It was a 3-day tryout. I was cut at the end of day 2, so at least I made it to day 2. Some guys got cut on day 1, but the level of play was very high, and I was the only guy from Florida to show up in Southern California, and of course the gym was full of guys from Southern California, and they've been playing beach and high school and college ball, so they certainly had an edge on me. But that's when I first met Doug Beal in 1993, and I tease him to this day that the first time I met him, he was cutting me from the national team. So I try not to hold that against him.
Okay. It's amazing. And tell me, when did you start? You told me after your career in the Air Force, you joined or you started being involved in Florida in volleyball. How was the story about and why did you became involved in managing this great state of Florida in volleyball? And what did you do in this job of yours? And tell me, please, what it's about? What's happening in Florida in volleyball when you started and today?
Well, it's been a long history here in my 21 years in this particular role with USA Volleyball here in Florida.
Yeah.
But I'd say when I first I came home from the military in '91 after Desert Storm was over, and got involved playing here in Florida. I'd done a little bit of coaching at the military base before I left, and so I knew I certainly had some interest in coaching. So I came home and played all the way up until about 97. My wife and I, we had our son in 97, so I took a short playing break and got back involved in late 98 and played some more. And then had an opportunity in 99 to start a juniors volleyball club here in the area. And so did that in 1999 and ran the juniors volleyball club, coached and acted as a club director there until about 2005. In 2005 is when I took this position, which was a new position that the Florida region of USA Volleyball was offering. Prior to taking this position, I'd served on the board of directors here in Florida for a couple of years as assistant commissioner and treasurer, because I had a financial background, and so was able to merge my love of the sport of volleyball and then my business experience in accounting and finance. So it was a good marriage, and it's one that's proven to be very beneficial. I've had a chance to continue to use those skills here in my role. as president of this organization. You talked about the history. When I first assumed this role in 2005, we had just a little over 4,200 members across the state of Florida. And this past year, we were just right at 19,300 members. So pretty substantial growth in those 20 years. And, the sport of volleyball is certainly seeing a lot of growth in a lot of areas, both domestically and internationally. And we expect many more great things here in Florida.
I have the opportunity to interview some former volleyball players from Peru, from Brazil, and also Brazilian actually, and ex-players from Venezuela who works in the United States. Some of them have volleyball academy in Texas, I don't know, in Seattle, everywhere in the United States. And they told me about the importance of school volleyball, because the school volleyball players, especially female, if they're good, they can play later in the universities and at college and volleyball and so on, and make their career and study. It's very different outside the United States, especially in my country, in Chile. So they told me about the big how can I say, the big size of volleyball in the United States. In every state, you have more than, I don't know, thousands of players, thousands of colleges, thousands of academies, and for me especially, it's overwhelming to watch this. It's amazing to know the size of this. It's sometimes it's a little difficult to process. So I wanted to ask you about this. What's your opinion about USA Volleyball from college, from school to college to university, and what's happening today? Because I remember talking with some person at the Holyoke last year, and he told me he has a problem. I asked him, what problem? We have too much players. And I told him it's not a problem. It's a so big opportunity. So I wanted to ask you about this. What's your opinion about what's happening in USA Volleyball today?
Well, opportunities are plentiful here in the United States, and you can start playing at the age of 8 and under, and play all the way until 80 years old. And there are playing opportunities for you at every stage. So you've got middle school volleyball here in the United States. It's not widely sanctioned, but there are lots of middle school volleyball programs that take place across the United States. Then, of course, high school volleyball with, high schools in every state and many high schools in every county of every state.
Yes.
I don't know the number off the top of my head of how many that is, but there are certainly lots of opportunities there. And then the kids can play USA Club volleyball at the same time they're playing high school volleyball. Those are complementary to each other with respect to seasons. High school plays in the fall, and USA Volleyball, the travel portion of our sport for those age kids, takes place, in the other months outside of high school. And then, of course, you go from high school and club, you go to college, and then from college, there are opportunities to play professional. And then here in actually about 2 or 3 weeks, USA will kick off a new women's professional league, Pro Volleyball Federation. We've had one in place for a couple of years here in the U.S. called Athletes Unlimited. It's a slightly different model, but certainly has been doing quite well. And then it looks like in 2025, we'll have a third women's pro league here in the United States kick off League One volleyball. So I think that puts the bookend on the other part of the sport here in the United States. Plenty of opportunities at the youth level. Some, 450,000 kids competing in volleyball under the USA Volleyball umbrella. And then obviously that number decreases a little bit, when you get to the college ranks, and then decreases once again when you get to the pro and then the national team numbers. So, but the recreational side of our sport is still very strong.
Mhm.
There are lots of beach events, grass volleyball events, recreational adult events that take place, adult leagues, things of that nature, all across this country. So great opportunities if you are a fan of volleyball here in the United States.
Absolutely, and I wanted to ask you about some things that also we the people in South America and other parts of the world always ask about. Why did you change some rules? For example, the libero, I know, or maybe I'm wrong, can serve, for example, and you invented volleyball, and it was in Holyoke, and where the Hall of Fame is. But why did you change sometimes the rules? So it is because you're more creative about volleyball. Why do you think this happened?
Well, I wish I knew the answer to that. I sometimes question why we change the rules as often as we do. I think some of it is more developmental. Most of the rule changes that you'll see here in the United States are based on a developmental side of the sport, meaning I'll give you a good example. All of international volleyball is familiar with 6-1 sub model, 6 subs, 1
Yes.
entry, you're done, right? When you put 12 kids on a team or 15 kids on a team and you limit them to 1 entry per position, half the kids on the bench, they never get to play.
Yes, yes.
And so you can't get better in a competition if you never play in a competition, right? Practice is practice, but competition is different. It brings out a different part of you. So in the United States, the concept of allowing more substitutions, as one example,
Yes.
I think is beneficial for the lower end of our sport, the development portion of our sport, which is club volleyball, high school volleyball, things of that nature.
Mhm.
You see NCAA using it more which is the whole collegiate realm, using a higher number of substitutions because, unfortunately, to some degree, I'd say there's a lot more specialization taking place.
Okay.
Whereas, perhaps internationally, you may have a six rotation type player who can, hop in there and cover everything. And I think due to the vast interest in the number of people that want to play here in the U.S., there's a lot more specialization that takes place. So I'd say for the sake of development, it probably has its benefits. But obviously, when the athletes transition from college to either pro or to national teams, federation level volleyball, they have to adapt pretty quickly to, in that example, the substitution rule, which is quite different.
Exactly. And going back to Florida, tell me please about a little more about what you're doing in Florida. What are your next projects, or what do you think in Florida as a state of volleyball will do in the United States?
Well, we've been pretty creative here in that growth model I mentioned to you. So went from about 4,200 members in 2005 to I think we'll get really close to 20,000 members this year.
Impressive.
Across the state. Yeah. And so part of that formula is basically offering more events.
Okay.
So when there are more opportunities for people to compete, more people find interest and they find a place where they can compete that fits their skill level.
Yes.
So a new thing that we're working on for 2025 is a local tournament series. And a local tournament series, if you think of a pyramid, you think of the base of the pyramid is wider and the top of the pyramid is more narrow. And so we say that the base of the pyramid will be for local level teams and athletes, so they won't travel perhaps very far outside of their local area. They certainly won't go to national level qualifying events, things of that nature, and national championships. They're just more interested in learning the sport. So it might be like 15 and below in ages. So we're looking at a local tournament series in 2025 here in Florida to help respond to what we believe will be an increased level of interest after the Paris Games. Every time there's an Olympic and Paralympic Games, we find that the interest in volleyball, which is what we focus on. I'm sure it's true in many sports, but the interest in volleyball participation goes up. And so we want to create more opportunities for kids that are coming in for the first time to be able to find a place that fits their comfort level, their skill set, and then they can move up the ladder as they wish.
Okay, I always have find it amazing talking about the vastity and the big size of volleyball in the United States, that you always have to I don't know it's the right word, but you have to fight against more popular sports like basketball, American football.
Yeah.
It's not soccer, I know, ice hockey, and many other so popular sports in the United States. And even so, you have so many players, so many championships, so many leagues. It's incredible. And why do you think? Maybe it's a very tough question, but why do you think volleyball has not reached the level of this sport as basketball or NBA or NHL? What do you think is missing volleyball, or maybe it's impossible to reach this high of importance of the other sports?
Well, I'd say a couple answers there. One is the other sports have had professional leagues for a very long time. So the NFL, the NBA, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And so they've had quite a head start on us. Volleyball, I think historically was always considered a minor sport, meaning a second level sport here in the US. And a lot of people felt like it was a girls only sport. Okay. You ask a lot of boys about playing volleyball and they say volleyball is for girls. And so we've been working on trying to fix that.
It's true.
That opinion of our sport. I would say a second thing is that we didn't have well-established pro leagues, or we have not historically. We've had many attempts over the years. It's a very costly effort. Mm-hmm. And when you can get the viewers, getting volleyball people to watch volleyball is not that difficult. Getting non-volleyball people to watch volleyball is why the NBA and the NFL are so successful.
Exactly.
They just have a great fan base. So I think what we saw here recently with the NCAA championships in Tampa in December of last year, with a 1.7 million viewership, which was an increase from, I think, right around 800,000 the previous year, a pretty substantial increase in viewership by moving it over to a major network here in the United States. And so I think those are the kind of things that will help us move volleyball forward. I don't know how quickly we can become at the same level of a NFL or an NBA. They just have such a head start, and they've learned a lot of lessons along the way that volleyball needs to learn still.
I know, and I think marketing is also very important. For example, a quick reflection. My son, for example, my oldest son, he never played basketball, but he has some basketball NBA shirts from actual players. I don't know. It's amazing. Or, for example, I never played tennis, but I had in my youth tennis shoes from older tennis players. So I remember, for example, in the 80s in Brazil, they produced a volleyball shoe, and the mark for the brand was Rainha, with the sign of Bernard Reichmann. But I never have seen these things again. For example, I never have seen a sports shoe from Kat Kirley, I don't know, or a T-shirt and collection from the Russian team from the 80s. So I think maybe the marketing work for volleyball, not only in the United States, I think worldwide, has not been done. I don't know why. Maybe it's a thing of budget. I don't know. But I think, as you're saying, NBA, NHL, the Football Association, the Ice Hockey Association have done maybe a better job or more longer job about this. So I hope sometimes volleyball will be so popular or more popular than the other sports. In South America, but South America, football, soccer is a religion for many countries. Even my country, football is the only thing the media covers, the only thing people talks about. So volleyball, and as you say, sometimes it's considered a girls' sport. And we have in some countries gay leagues where only gay people play volleyball. So it's amazing to know some things about this. And I wanted to continue our conversation, Steve, and now attending the Volleyball Hall of Fame, because I had the opportunity, the great opportunity last year to visit in the Holyoke city and be there by the award ceremony of the class 2023. And also, I want to say it publicly. You mentioned me at the gala dinner, so I appreciate it very, very, very greatly. So I wanted to ask you about the Hall of Fame. When did you start to be part of this, and what do you think about the Hall of Fame of it's important for volleyball?
Well, let me say first, we appreciated your attendance in October of 2023 there in Holyoke, and being part of our newly formed International Media Advisory Group. We appreciate your work on that, and we appreciate the fact that you were able to come and see it firsthand, because it is something that I think all volleyball people should try and experience at least once in their life. And my thought is that once you experience it once, you will want to experience it again, because it's a very momentous occasion. It's an opportunity to spend time with the greats of our sport, whether they be an athlete, a coach, a leader, an official, and to see them walk through that moment of recognition, or the several days of recognition, actually, is life-changing for them, because you know as well as I do all of the years that someone puts into making themselves either a great coach, a great leader, a great athlete, or a great official is a lot of hours behind the scenes, meaning you do things that you think will make you better at your trade. And so when you come to Holyoke and you get inducted into the class, or you receive one of our special awards, it is the entire world saying to you, great job. We know what you did, and we want to recognize you accordingly. So it is a favorite event of mine each year, no doubt. You asked about my historical involvement. I first attended in 2011. I attended with Rita Crockett. Rita Crockett was being inducted into the International Volleyball Hall of Fame, and she was a resident of Florida.
Okay.
So I traveled up with her and her family because I wanted to go up and support them and be there to enjoy this moment with her. I immediately fell in love with the organization, the people, the experience, and I've been involved on the board since 2012. I immediately petitioned, at that time, the board chair, Ed Toole, and George Morey, who was relatively new, and said, I really want to get involved. I'm not sure how I can help or what I can do, but I'd love to get involved with what you have going on here. So in 2012, they invited me to join the board of directors. I was the first person outside of Holyoke. So I was the first person that didn't reside in the local area. And so it was a new thing for them. It was something new for them to embrace, having someone from outside of the area, the local area, because historically it had been a group of local leaders who had championed the efforts of the Hall, the Hall of Fame. And so I served on the board until 2012 until 2016. At that time, Ed Toole, the board president, stepped down, and they asked if anyone was interested in being the board chair. And I raised my hand and said, I think I could help. And so in 2016, they asked me to assume the role of board president, and I've had the pleasure of having that role since that time. It is one of the greatest group of individuals that I work with on an annual basis, and I probably serve on about a dozen different committees or work groups or boards across the U.S. And this is truly a great group of volunteers, people that want to give back to the sport and help make those induction moments very special for all of those great people that we've talked about.
Absolutely. As we spoke with you and many others from the Hall of Fame in Holyoke, sometimes, or maybe the more times, the concept of Hall of Fames is not very known outside the United States, because you have Hall of Fames, rock and roll Hall of Fame, and train Hall of Fame. So it's a very, very common concept in the United States, but not so common outside America. So for me, as you were saying, and for many others, communicators, we want to spread this. We want to communicate what is the Hall of Fame. Have the fantastic opportunity after Holyoke. There was the Pan-American Games in Chile, Santiago, and I have invited Bernard Reichman to my house to dinner. And he told me, he remembered so freshly his experience as the first international volleyball player inducted in the Hall of Fame. So I think it's so important to communicate, to spread what the Hall of Fame is doing, because as you're saying, nobody knows the effort that the players put, or the trainers. The people only see the teams and the court, but behind the scene, all the effort, all the times they were not with the families celebrating a birthday or holidays. I don't know. This effort, I think the Hall of Fame is appreciated so much, and I think there's so many good players or trainers outside the world. Hopefully they will someday induct it in the Hall of Fame, because I think it's so important, especially also because I think our history is important to build our future. And many times I have seen, for example, players from Brazil, historical players from Brazil, Olympic champion, for example, they told me that the actual players, young players from today, they didn't know that they played in the Olympic Games, for example. So they have to show them YouTube. Here I was in Barcelona playing the final against Holland. They said, "That's you playing?" Absolutely. So I think to honor history, to honor people like you, for example, what you're doing in Florida, what you're doing in the Hall of Fame, or many others, is so important that I think I try to make my little effort to spread this, because I think volleyball, for me, is the most important, the most beautiful sport in the world. More for me, I'm crazy about volleyball, so I think it's so important to do this, and what the Hall of Fame is doing, and what I experienced there, it's amazing. It's impressive. So I wanted to. That's my personal opinion. And I wanted to ask you more about the Hall of Fame. Do you have some maybe they are secret, but do you have some more objectives, plans for this year for the Hall of Fame, or you're planning this time before March, for example, what will be this year of the class of 2024?
Well, I'll respond to your comment about history and the spreading of that. I'm often critical of our sport and our leaders in our sport that we don't tell the history often enough. I'd say, I refer to it as tribal knowledge, meaning knowledge that gets handed down, right? Yeah. And so when you tell me a young player doesn't know who preceded him from his own country, that means we haven't done a very good job of telling our story in volleyball. Mm-hmm. I started an initiative a couple of years ago here. Anytime I have a leader meeting of any kind, I put together a trivia test, a volleyball trivia test, and it's 10 questions, and I hand it out. Yes. And they are all amazed at how little they know about the history of our sport. And so I have to keep coming up with new and different questions because I see the same people often. But my point there is I give them the answers, and then I tell them to write them down, and then I tell them to take those tests back to their clubs, back to their organizations, and help us do a better job of talking about our sport, share the information with younger kids. When you walk some of our more famous or well recognized, or even our inductees in the Hall of Fame. When I take them, sometimes we've taken them to the high school in Holyoke to do a clinic while we were in town. We have to introduce them and tell everyone in the room why they're important. And they all are looking at us like, we've never heard of this person. And then we convince them that you should be in awe of this individual because they played in 5 Olympics. And that's a lot of time. That's 20 years of competing at a very high level, which is very difficult. So I agree with you. I think part of this challenge for us in sport to become more globally known is to do a better job of handing down that information to the next generation. So I think we agree there.
Yes, and no, keep on.
No, I was going to say, with respect to plans for the Hall of Fame going forward, there are lots of lofty plans. We're big thinkers, and some of them are easily attainable. Some of them are more challenging. We're always very hopeful that we could have a more well-defined relationship with the FIVB and maybe have some jointly produced events where we're able to recognize alumni and inductees on the world stage so that they can be better recognized by their peers and leaders of all of the federations across the world. That's always that's been a goal of mine since taking leadership at the Hall of Fame in 2016, and George Mulray and our board of directors all sharing that. Expansion of the hall, perhaps either expansion in our current location or an opportunity to move to a new location so that we could have indoor courts and sand courts and sitting Paralympic courts and things of that nature where the sport could be experienced, not just read about or videos, but you could actually get on a court and experience volleyball and understand why so many people have a passion for it. So that's a very big lofty goal that comes with a big price tag, and but it's on our list. Expansion of our Hall of Fame staff, so our wonderful George Mulray doesn't have to try and carry this load all by himself, is a goal. Further expansion of our board of directors. So now we have representation on our board locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. We want to continue to expand that footprint of our board of directors so that we have great people from around the world that are helping us continue this mission.
Fantastic.
We've been talking a little bit about adding an alumni advisory council or an alumni council. We're still working on the name, but this would be alumni that have been inducted in past years that would like to come on in an advisory role and give us feedback on what things we could do to make the whole experience even better. And so that's a 2024, 2025 initiative. Last year we added, as I mentioned earlier, you've agreed to join the International Media Advisory Group, and that was one of those things that we wanted to do, which we've been able to do. We've added a mayor's award that our local mayor, who served on our board of directors, is able to present annually, and so that's been a nice addition. Those are probably the bigger items. Some, as I mentioned, achievable. Some a little more lofty, but we continue to work towards them.
It's important, and what you mentioned about this question for young people. I sometimes when I with friends, with family, I ask them, name me 3 volleyball soccer players. That tell me immediately Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi. I don't know. Tell me 3 tennis players, Federer. I don't know. And when I ask them, tell me 3 volleyball players, they look at me. What is volleyball? Sometimes the name some in Chile we have some beach volleyball. They're famous, but I think And getting back to what I told you before about what the NBA has done, especially with historical players, and you ask every kid or young people around the world, they will tell you Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, because they have done a very good job. I know that the professional league is very old, but they have done, I think, a better job as we in volleyball, and especially in honoring our past stars. So I think what the Hall of Fame is doing is so important, absolutely. And I feel very gratefully being a part of this and trying to do this via my channel. So I think it's so important. So I wanted to finally to appreciate and thank for your time. I know you're very busy over there in Florida, but I wanted to thank you again, not only for these conversations, also because last year for me, being in Holyoke was one of my peaks of my life, absolutely. So I want to send you my best wishes to you, to your family, for your projects in Hall of Fame and Florida region, and invite you to keep in touch, to being part of Love for Volleyball, Amor por el Voleibol is very important for me, that you and all your people can spread it around the world, because I as I told you, more people seeing volleyball, more people watching volleyball is good for all of us. So I want to thank you again, Steve, being part of my interviews, and send you my best wishes to you, and hope we can keep in touch. Okay.
Well, Alfredo, thank you so much. I will reciprocate and say thank you to you for obviously your passion for this sport, for your interest and decision to join our media advisory group at the Hall of Fame. You are very kind and humble person. I enjoyed meeting you in Holyoke, and I'm really glad that experience was memorable for you. Keep up the good work. I know that our paths will cross again very soon, and I wish you a happy 2024 and beyond.
That's it.